years, we've been hearing the steady drumbeat to conserve water. So a Salt Lake City man thought he was doing his part when he replaced his front lawn with water-saving artificial grass.
Yeah, so when the city told him, no, it was not allowed and it had to go, that was a problem. The KSL investigators looked into the red tape over green turf.
For many of us, our yards are our sanctuaries, our own comfortable paradise of green space where we can unwind, relax, de-stress. At least that's how Tony Hughes sees his Salt Lake City yard.
I just want to be able to do what I want to do in my yard.
But getting around his comfortable green space was not always comfortable for Tony.
It's almost impossible in a wheelchair, especially after rain. It bogs down, it becomes mud, and then you can't go anywhere.
So this past summer, Tony paid a company to replace the grass in his front yard with artificial turf. Every blade of grass is manufactured.
It is absolutely fantastic for a handicapped person in a wheelchair.
Tony says he got to enjoy a synthetic sanctuary for about a week before a civil enforcement officer from the city showed up.
We paid $11,000 for the front yard, and now they're telling us we have to tear it up.
Yeah, tear it up and out of there. Turns out Salt Lake City banned artificial turf in the 90s, and the city council chose to keep that ban when they updated the landscaping ordinances in March. For Tony, not complying could add up fast. A fine of $25 every day. His fake turf stays in place.
You've got to get rid of it.
But hold on here. Salt Lake City has been locked in a mega drought since the early 2000s. In that time, Utah's population has shot up by over 1 million. That's a lot more people using a lot more water. More than 300 gallons of water per day for the average family, according to the Environmental Protection Agency. And roughly 30% of that goes to keeping lawns green. So why not allow an alternative that stays green without water?
Microplastics, chemicals, including PFAS.
Stephanie Doerr leads conservation efforts for Salt Lake's Public Utilities Department. She says turf typically includes toxic metals, carcinogens, and so-called forever chemicals that break down really slowly, if at all. They're great at making fake grass look lush, but bad for our health. Studies show if they end up in our water supply.
That flows off that landscape into the storm drain and moves into our stormwater system and goes into our waterways.
Still, natural grass isn't exactly pristine either. Many Utahns douse their lawns with toxic fertilizers and pesticides that can also make their way to waterways.
Many of the things that people do to treat their lawns are things that aren't necessary.
Another reason the city restricts turf is its surface temperature can run hot, like way hot. In fact, it's hot enough to raise air temperatures in the neighborhood.
60 to 80 degrees hotter than the ambient air temperature.
Yeah, when we tested the artificial turf at Liberty Park on a hot July day a few years back, we got readings of 175 degrees, 178, 185. That turf, by the way, was installed by Salt Lake City. So why don't they have the same qualms about turf installed in a park or athletic field as they do about turf in someone's yard?
I don't know if I have a specific answer for that.
What Michaela Oktay, deputy director of the city's planning division, can tell us is the turf restrictions only apply to areas of property that are required to have landscaping. So, artificial turf in a front yard, park strip, or a corner side strip, well, that's bad. But in a backyard, there's no restriction because landscaping is not required. Wait a second. What?
I think there's definitely a balancing act with allowing it in other areas on someone's property that water can be retained in a better fashion than in a front yard.
Of Utah's 10 largest cities, only Provo joined Salt Lake in not allowing artificial turf where landscaping's required. Meanwhile, in Orem, Ogden, South Jordan, West Jordan, Sandy, you can put it there, but there's some restrictions in place. Then you've got Lehigh, West Valley City, and St. George, where you can put it anywhere on a residential lot.
Nationally, the New York State Legislature is mulling over a moratorium on new turf, pending environmental and health studies. Colorado will soon ban it on most commercial, industrial, and state-owned property. And LA is considering a ban, as several other cities across the country have already enacted bans or severe restrictions. Back here in Salt Lake, there is one more reason they restrict artificial turf. It might make your neighbor jealous, or in other words, it creates a false expectation that a green lawn is attainable year-round.
I can't operate the lawnmower.
Tony says with the city pulling his turf out from underneath him, His choice is either soil, mulch, or rocks.
I have nothing against that, but I'm handicapped. I need to be able to move around on it, and this is perfect for a handicapped person.
City told us that they are willing to let Tony apply for an ADA accommodation. Fortunately for Tony, the company who installed his turf is willing to replace it with a surface acceptable to the city at no additional cost here. And if you are a homeowner with artificial turf in Salt Lake City, you have until September of 2025, that's next year, to replace it, or you will face those fines.
Those are some interesting reasons, some of them.
Yeah, it is. You can see the argument on both sides of that one, but yeah, he's certainly not happy about it as well, Tony.